This is my take on how the government's response to the pandemic created the labor shortage that we have now. So let's dive right in. March of 2020, we know that they locked everybody in their houses. We had lockdowns. Told people that wasn't essential. They didn't think it were essential to go back to, not to go to work, but to stay home. People were furloughed. They were paid the $600 a week unemployment. They sent out stimulus checks. We know about the CARES Act. Well, what did this actually do? Here's your money supply. This is the money that's actually in circulation. It accounts for the money that's in people's bank accounts that are non-bank entities. In other words, all the businesses, all of the average Joes and Janes in the real economy. This is the actual money supply in circulation. So when we get over here to the CARES Act, about March 2020, it goes up about 25%. We can see this is how much as a total that there actually was of money. And before that, you can see it was right around 18 trillion, and now it's up about 21 trillion in money supply for us to use. Okay, where did this money go? They sent out $5 trillion. We see that right here in 25% increase, and it ain't done nothing but go up since then. So where did it go? Well, if you look at the S&P market cap values, right around January 19, we were holding pretty well, about 24 trillion. Then it comes down and up, down and up, down and up. We get to March of 2020, which is about right here. It falls out of bed. The S&P falls out of bed. They got the headlines that we've got this pandemic. Now we've got this virus that's over here that we can't do nothing about. We don't have a cure for it. We don't know what to do for it. We don't have any information about it. So the markets get up in March 2020, they fall out of bed. Well, right along here when you get this V is where the CARES Act comes in. The more that they talked about spending money, the higher the market went. Why is that? Well, after March of 2020, when it passed, people got to have money to spend. They didn't have to pay their mortgage anymore. That was in the CARES Act. That was $1,275 a month they got to keep on average in the U.S. That is the average 30-year note on a mortgage is $1,275 per month. And rent, some places are higher, some places are less, depends on where you live. But on average, this is what they were allowed to keep on top of what they were given in stimulus and helicopter money from Uncle Sam. So what did they do with it? Sure, some people paid normal bills, and the excess they put in savings. And that can be seen. There is a chart that shows how the savings went up and how it's coming back down as people bleed off their savings and pay their bills and things of that nature. But a lot of people apparently took it and put it in the stock market. Because now your stock market went from a low down here of about 18, almost where we're at now, up here next to 40. Now you can see beforehand, this nice little trend line, it wasn't varying too much. We were staying pretty well steady. And then after the CARES Act, it's went up and up and up. I've also listed the crypto market cap on here. Well, why does that matter? Anybody that's followed financial news lately in the last year has known that Bitcoin went straight up. And not only that, you've got Dogecoin, which was supposedly a joke of spin-off of Bitcoin, and then Shiba Inu that just came out that it's just a joke of a joke, and these places are going up and up and up. So my theory is people have taken their money and played the stock market like a casino, and they're getting enough returns that they don't have to go back to work. Now, down here we have the actual inflation CPI. Now, according to Economics, the theory of economics, the cure for high prices in a free market is high prices. Because as more people see, for instance, if we have an item that the price has went skyrocketing. It's went up and up and up and up, and people just cannot get enough. Well, somebody will come along and they'll begin to make more of that item. Somebody else may make something similar to it to try to cut into that market to bring that price back down. Right now, that's not happening. But that is the actual way that free market capitalism would work. Right now, what we have is the government increased the money supply by 25%, but we didn't increase actual growth and productivity. Now you'll say the GDP numbers have went up. You hear that on the headline news. But what they aren't accounting for is the actual deflator for the CPI. Because this chart down here shows how the CPI was measured. The blue line is in 1980. The red line is current. And these are the government numbers. This is not somebody's back of the napkin math. This is actual government numbers, calculated the way the government themselves would calculate it in 1980. And we see how it goes along, but we also see how they have been underestimating, for another lack of word, the actual CPI, understating it. This matters because the red line is the one they're actually using, and the deflator, which is actually less than that, to calculate real GDP. So let's call it, they're saying the CPI is around 6.3% as of October, but the way the government actually measured it in 1980, it's actually around 15%. Well, that's how you're getting your growth, your actual growth in GDP of 1 or 2%. Man, that stuff's actually negative. In other words, we're in a recession, if not a depression, and have been for some time. So, for a recap, this is why they say the market is so robust. They increased the money supply. They got their inflation they wanted. The Fed says they want a 2% target year over year. They've got more than that, and they sure ain't trying to slow it down right now. They're saying let it run hot. We didn't get what we wanted back in the years past. If you look back here, they got more than what they wanted. The more of this money, the more money they print, the less it's worth. Which means they're paying back the debt with cheaper and cheaper dollars. They actually came out earlier this month and said that our debt to GDP ratio was 135% last year. Now it's 125%, which makes us look better in terms of debt to GDP. But they increased the money supply by 25%. By making your money worth less, they're paying that debt back with cheaper dollars. Okay. So why can't we get people to come back to work? If the economy was as robust as they want to make it out to be, and we were actually in real growth, and you take a company that could actually has a product to sell, and they see the opportunity to make nothing but money and gains and profit from that, they will pay to get somebody in there. If they look out, for instance, they look out and they see nothing but profit off of this product, they'll say, get me somebody here. We don't care if you pay them an extra $1 an hour. The more money, more of this they can pump out, the more I can make. That's the way businesses in a free market think. However, what are they saying now? We'll give you $10 or $11 an hour, but we won't raise it. I can remember back before 2007, I was working in a factory. I'd worked there for 3 or 4 years at that time. We had a product that was selling really hot around 2004, 2005. They hired a whole extra shift, not just 1 or 2 people. They hired a whole extra shift to run this product, so we could turn it out 7 days a week. 24 hours a day we were running that product. They didn't care what they had to pay. The product was selling faster than we could make it. So by adding all these extra bodies in here to actually run the machines, get everybody up to speed, get the pumping out product, they can make more money. So why aren't businesses paying more? They're looking at the outlook of the economy and they're not seeing that growth. Sure, they see it on CNBC, Bloomberg, all your headline numbers. They spew out all this growth. Your businesses, your entrepreneurs, they're not seeing it. If they was, they may offer you $10 or $11 today, but when they didn't get somebody to work, they'd say, bump that to 15. Get me somebody in here. Bump it to 20. Whatever it takes, get me somebody in here. And at some point, and this is your market clearing wage, they will offer enough that people will be willing to trade their time for that amount of money, so that they can go out and buy goods and services. Now let's go back to this CPI and the inflation. Why did we get this inflation in the first place? The government's response was to lock people in their houses. And by the way, we have an economy that doesn't flip on and off and on like a light switch. You don't just reach over here and take your thumb and flip it on when you want it to run hot and you want it running good, and take your other finger and flip it off when you don't want it to work at all and lock everybody down. That doesn't work. It's a slow process. You can turn it off quick, but it takes a lot longer to build back up and get things started back. You might bring it to a screeching halt, but it won't come back just automatically. They think it did with a V-shaped recovery. All it done was financialize the whole economy. Anyhow, why did we get inflation? Was it just that they increased the money supply? No. If they had spent 25% increase on the money supply that was actually productive. In other words, they were loaning this money out to somebody who was going to start a business to produce something to get a return on the money, we would not have the inflation. The theory is, if you increase the money supply by 10%, and that 10% growth actually increases your growth, or that 10% increase actually increases growth and productivity in the real economy by 10%, your inflation will actually be 0. Not that the money supply didn't increase, but that you were producing more to account for it. In this scenario, we increased the money supply, but we didn't increase our productivity. And that's how we got our inflation. So, for more videos like this, stay tuned. Our next video will go over money creation, how it changed in 2020, how it was traditionally. We'll also go over balance sheets and things of that nature, and banking system, and try to do our best to show you how the government is taking more of your purchasing power by just printing more money.